Hello, my name is Lydia Eckstein and I'm the Research Manager at Round Square. Today I'll be speaking with students who, over the past 12 months, have been working with Dr. Ewan Wright and Dr. Kanwal Hassan from the Education University of Hong Kong on a cross-cultural study of student leadership in Round Square schools. You can access the full report and the Students' Perspective anthology in the Research Library on the Round Square website. In this podcast episode, we'll be asking the students to share their reflections on how they developed as learners throughout the research journey. If you'd like to hear more about the findings from the study, you can access the Student Findings podcast on the Round Square website as well. The student research ambassadors were vital in the research process. They helped design the interview protocols, they completed basic training in qualitative research and research ethics, they conducted 114 interviews, and they also authored their own research perspective papers, whilst the university team wrote up the findings into the final report. Let's hear what the students have shared with us about how engaging in this project has affected their personal and academic growth.
I didn't really know what it was initially, but after kind of going through the survey and then starting to do the interviews, it made more sense as we were kind of taking the voices from our school that maybe, would have been unheard of and kind of bringing them to light in this research project, which I thought was pretty unique and pretty amazing.
It's a different type of research project and it teaches you a lot of skills that are actually very beneficial. I can see now, especially with how we approach projects and stuff like that, we've got a different approach. It's taught us a lot of useful methods with gathering information.
Something that was very new to me was you see all these universities and colleges saying we're a research school. What does that mean? So it was very cool seeing that, how that actually gets presented to the world, I guess, in a way. It's just, you could see the university actually conducting this research and how it becomes a research paper. So that was new to me because before I was just how do they do that? So it's a very cool process.
I think it was fun. I think it's a great thing to do and to implement because it's such a different thing. I don't know about other schools because obviously we are a small school in a small country, but we don't do stuff like this. So when we got the opportunity, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. And it's just a different project, if that makes sense. It's not like curriculum or it's not like a sports activity or a club. It's actually a project that you're there for a whole year for.
For us to kind of implement that in our own leadership styles as well, going into these positions so that we can, be the best fit leaders for students in our school. I think it is really good for us to do it ourselves so that we get the first-hand experience at, connecting with the students and understanding what they like and what they don't like.
We definitely learned throughout the process. I had almost no experience with interviewing people. And I thought just from the support that we got from the individuals in Hong Kong, and they taught us how to ask follow-up questions and what to be thinking about to make it more like a conversation instead of a very formal interview where we're asking them questions. I think all those tips helped us evolve our leadership skills and therefore in the end helped the entire interview process and the responses from the interviewees to be more open-hearted and more authentic.
The first time we were interrupting each other or speaking over each other because we weren't used to doing these interviews on Google Meets. We weren't used to asking these different questions, but by the end we had a nice flow. And because we were in such sync and so comfortable, it made the interviewee more comfortable and they were able to share their ideas. And in general, I think we learned from ourselves and them to make the interviews a success.
Definitely.
And I actually quite enjoyed doing the interviews, asking people the questions because everyone had very unique, different answers. So that was quite fun part of the process. I don't think we'd sit around at lunch and say something like, do you think leaders are born or learned? Or a question like that. So yeah, we definitely learned another side of them that we wouldn't have learnt if we didn't do the interview.
The first interview we did was very unnerving, very uncomfortable. But then I found as second, third, fourth interview came in, I found myself becoming very confident. And that made the interviews a lot more fun, not just for me, but also for the interviewee.
I tend to always put myself at a leadership position because that's where I'm comfortable and that's where I thrive. And during the interviews, I picked up on really bad habits that I've developed over the years, and I didn't even notice that I did it. But during the first couple of interviews, every single time someone gave me an answer, I felt the need to take control of the situation by repeating their answer, but changing the words and then saying, is this what you meant? And just sort of forcing them to realize that I was the interviewer. And the second I stopped doing that, and I had to force myself to just keep quiet and let the person think and formulate an answer and just carry on speaking freely without me forcing an answer into them, the answers became so natural and authentic and personal. And I learned a lot about how I speak to people and how I approach conversations in order to get the most out of what the person has to say. So I think that was really valuable. That was a really valuable lesson.
And it's kind of how can we be the best leaders that we can be in that regards, listening to the interviews and kind of listening to those different perspectives of what makes a good leader and developing our own leadership styles, but also at the same time taking input of what other people may think is a good leader and incorporating that to how we work and work with other students.
Something that I personally benefited from working with Round Square and the Education University of Hong Kong was that I got to become more comfortable with talking to other people, but I also greatly benefited from hearing other people's thoughts on leadership, especially because I'm someone who holds a leadership position within the school, and hearing people's different thoughts and opinions on leadership really made me think about the sort of things that I want to incorporate into my own leadership style, not just right now, but even moving forward.
My personal highlight was seeing how different age groups responded to our questions on leadership and how younger children saw it as more of an individual topic rather than a global issue or something that the entire world is concerned with, and then older students did the exact opposite, which was really interesting to see.
I was surprised by the amount of information we recollected. It was really interesting to see different points of view in a topic that I hadn't discussed before, such as leadership. I had never sit down and talked about leadership as a topic, so it was really interesting and surprising to see those thoughts from everyone around me.
It made me aware of a side of myself that I had never practiced before, as I'd never directly discussed or participated in specific topic-related leadership. Obviously, I'd participated in leadership before, but spending so much time on the actual topic of leadership, I think, has taught me what it means to be a leader, what kind of leader I want to be, and what the majority see as leaders or don't see as leaders, which I think is just so important that I've learned this perspective of leadership and how leadership is truly different for everybody else. But that time spent talking to the students and teachers from other schools was invaluable. It was amazing to talk to people of similar minds about something that we were trying to achieve and how we were going to get there. Like, it's even amazing doing it within your own city, talking to other students about mature topics like leadership. But the fact that you provided us with the opportunity to do it with students and teachers of countries across the other side of the world was amazing.
Thank you to all of our students who joined us for today's podcast, and thank you to all of the student research ambassadors who took part in our study. Over the course of the project, not only did the students develop their own understanding of and skills for academic research, but they also learned a lot about differences and similarities in perspectives and approaches to leadership around the world. And importantly, our student ambassadors were able to build experience of working in a truly international team, whilst adding relevance and depth to the research study itself.